guys, I'm going to be making for you guys something today that's going to be called a grilled skirt steak with chimichurri. And basically what chimichurri really reminds me of is an Argentinian steak garnish that they use a lot in what they call parrilladas down in Argentina. And it's a very simple sauce that utilizes fresh herbs. And in this case, we're going to be using cilantro and we're going to be using some fresh Italian parsley. Basically how it's going to start is real simple. In this blender here, we're going to start with some vinegar, some acidity, and we're going to start to build sort of the building blocks for this vinaigrette, this salsa verde, something very straightforward and simple. We're going to start with some white wine vinegar. You can use whatever kind of vinegar you like. I would recommend something with cider, something that's light, not something that's very strong and sort of aged. So this, we're going to add some fresh garlic right here, and at all costs, you should try to you should crack your garlic freshly. You shouldn't try to buy peeled or ground garlic. I don't think it's particularly enjoyable. Some of you have no idea when that garlic was peeled and crushed. So by all means, go old school and buy the cloves, all right? You don't know what you're missing. All right, so I'm gonna put a clove of garlic in here. And traditionally, if you didn't have a blender, you could start working with it here, and this is what we would call a molcajete, which is sort of like an old school mortar and pestle. So what we're gonna start doing is, as I'm making this chimichurri, I'm gonna start searing off some meat so you guys can taste a little bit of what we're gonna be doing here. It's gonna basically start with this skirt steak, right? Or this arrachera. And this is what we call it in Mexico. And it's this beautiful cut of meat right here that is just, it comes from the belly flap of the steer. It's traditionally used in fajitas. If you guys have ever had fajitas, this is really the cut of meat that you use for that. And it's just delicious. It's a great value cut. So if you want something to feed the family that's not going to break the bank, I really think that skirt steak is a great way to go. So the way to do it is, I like to actually, when I'm grilling something, I like to put it a little bit of oil right on my meat, on my protein. And the reason being is, you want that protein to allow the salt and the pepper to adhere to it. You know what I mean? So if I were just to throw salt and pepper right on this meat, it would bounce off. So I like to put a little bit, hey Greg, let me get that meat over here and I'll start searing off. What do you think, Jamal?
What's that, you need some meat?
Yeah.
I've got plenty of meat, my friend.
All right, bring that right over and then we'll start searing off. So the idea is that you want to add a little bit of oil, and then you want to be able to allow the salt and pepper to adhere to that. All right, so I'm going to start dropping some of this in there. And Greg's going to give me a hand because he's my wingman today. So what we're going to do is we're going to sear this off, and that way you guys can kind of get an idea of what we're going to be doing in a little bit. And we're going to serve a couple samples over here for you guys, all right? So when I season, please use kosher salt. Kosher salt is a beautiful thing. The reason being is that you're able to feel the granules of salt in your hand and get a good idea of how much you're seasoning. And that's very important. Don't try to use iodinized salt or that real fine salt. You should have a sea salt and you should have kosher salt in your house at all times. Or I'm going to come looking for you, all right? I know all your faces. I'm going to come and get you. All right, hold on. Let me get this little pepper mill out here. Let me get the pepper mill slowly down. I'm sorry. So then we're going to give it a good little seasoning, and then we're going to just sear it, okay? Now you can do this on the grill, thank you, Greg. You can do this on the grill, obviously, or in the pan like this. The whole key to getting a good piece of meat cooked is not moving it. You really want to create a nice sear on the outside and allow all those juices to sort of stay intact. So the way I do it here, I know people in New Orleans like to go about this rule is, you got to do a one beer rule. So I'm not going to touch that unless I drink one beer at least. And you guys should adopt that whole principle at home. And for some of y'all, that might be 2 or 3 beers, all right? So don't touch that meat till you at least have a beer or 2, okay? Greg, he home brews. So that man doesn't need to go buy brew. He makes his own stuff. That's how crazy he is. All right, so anyway, you guys got the idea, right? If you're seasoning if you're going to have your meat and it calls for a marinade, be very aware of any marinade that has salt in it. Because when you add salt, it pulls out the moisture. So like soy sauce with a long marinade is a very tricky thing. Be careful, because it pulls out the moisture and it dries out your meat. So always add salt or anything with salt at the end. Remember, okay? You can put black pepper, anything else you want, spices, any seasoning, but be leery of that, okay? Usually a good marinade for something this thin would be 6 to 12 hours. All depending on the density of the meat, okay? All right.
Chef, what's a good indicator that you can show people maybe to look for that's happening on maybe the top of the meat or even the underside, but when you know to turn it?
That's a great question. But right now, you'll see it'll start to tighten up. All the protein will tighten up. And then you'll start seeing the outside of the meat sort of kind of like brown and caramelized. And that's when it's a good time to flip it over, okay? But you see, I'm not even messing with it. I'm just letting it do its thing, okay? So, and all of its feel, it's touch. The more you cook on, the more you grill, you guys all know that, right? So, don't mess with it too much.
What kind of oil?
I use canola oil, man, canola oil. All right, so let's get back to the chimichurri. I got a little bit of white vinegar here in this blender. I'm gonna start with a clove of garlic. Right here I have the chiles, right? This is called the chile serrano, and this is called the chile jalapeno. Does anybody know what state of Mexico this jalapeno comes from? If you get it right, you can get a free hug with John Besh.
I love you. I love you.
Thank you, John. No, Oaxaca, no. It comes from the state of Veracruz. In the north part of the capital of Veracruz is a town called Jalapa, Jalapeño. You guys get it? So that's where the jalapeno hails from, Veracruz, which is actually on the Gulf of Mexico. So we all are here trying to support all the shrimping and the fishing community here in the Gulf. So actually Veracruz is suffering as well from the current situation. So the jalapeno is something that I think is really important right now to sort of focus on and give some love to, okay? So if you wanted to make it spicier, you can go with a little bit of chile serrano, which is a thinner one. Or if you want a little bit more milder, you can go with the big chile jalapeno. But please, by all means, do not remove the seeds or the stems. That is where all the heat and the flavor lies, okay? So, I'm gonna cut it up, and then I'm gonna add that to my vinegar, okay? And then from that, I'm gonna add a little bit of dried Mexican oregano. Okay, now Mexican oregano is more similar to like a dried marjoram. It has this very sort of fragrant, pungent flavor, and it's not as fine as a lot of the Italian or the Greek oregano. In northern Mexico, where we're from, there's not much of it's so hot there, and my family were cattle ranchers, and we used to have Mexican oregano growing on the ranch. So the cow would eat this meat, and they would eat the Mexican oregano, and the meat would have a very subtle flavor of oregano. It was something that was very beautiful. So I like to break up the oregano in my hand, let the fragrance and the oil come out, and that's something that's very important. So I've added that. I'm a little bit of bay leaf, dry bay leaf. And you might be thinking, well, I'm going to use dry bay leaf and I'm going to puree it. I've lost my mind. That's not the case. Don't worry, Greg, I'm still good. We're going to grind up one bay leaf. So this is sort of the foundation of this chimichurri. And we're going to puree that and let that all come together, okay? And that's going to be our acidity, our heat, our spice level for the chimichurri, okay? And these are all things that work great. Garlic, vinegar, we have oregano. These are all the things that work really well with beef. And incidentally, this sauce is fantastic with chicken, just about anything off the grill, okay? We have our jalapeno, we have our garlic, we have our oregano, bay leaf, our vinegar, our oil, and all the herbs. We're almost ready to go. Now we have to add some fresh cracked pepper. Try to get yourself one of these. If you've been all your nights, ask Santa, he'll get you one. I promise you, all right? There's nothing to substitute fresh cracked pepper, okay? And then we're gonna season with a little bit of salt, like that. And then this is our salsa verde. This is our chimichurri, if you will. And the one thing that I really recommend everyone to do as well is you can actually marinate in this. So you can actually take a piece of fish or steak and leave it in this for about half an hour, 45 minutes before you grill, and you're also left with something beautiful as well. So this is a multi-purpose, multi-functioning sort of dressing or vinaigrette, if you will. And it serves a lot of great purposes. And if you guys want, we have the recipe over there on the car, or you can just go to chefadonsanchez.com. And you can find a lot of great information there